Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Derick Johnson, U.S. Army veteran turned life coach. Please enjoy Derick Johnson. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm here with Derick Johnson, U.S. Army veteran turned life coach. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here.
I am so excited to chat with you about creativity and how creativity has shown up in your life, how it shows up in the things that you do. But before we get there, why don't you take a couple of minutes and let our listeners know a little bit more about who you are and what you do?
All right, for sure. I appreciate it. So number one, I was in the U.S. Army for 10 years. I'm also an Army brat, meaning my father was in the U.S. Army 20 plus years. I grew up in Germany. So my mother's German, my father is African American. So having a diverse background and living in throughout Europe and coming to the States, a lot of that paved my way of thinking because you were just around a plethora of people and ideologies, like all kind of stuff. So it prepared me to connect with people easier than most kids because a lot of military families, also if they're mixed and all that, they're just around such a melting pot of people that it gets easier to have the social skills needed, which are rare now. But as a teen, I was blessed, or excuse me, as a child and as a teen, I was blessed having very hardworking parents. My mother was a Montessori school teacher. I didn't personally go, but if you know the structure of them, and she's German, so she's just very gung-ho. And my father was a drill sergeant and just like top notch. So both parents were highly disciplined, but everything was focused on career, business, and success. So the family portion was not really there. The example, the I love yous, the support system and all that, it was more so we work hard and get stuff done and that's it. We don't talk about anything else because your life's not crazy. So I was basically just a quiet kid, kept everything to myself. But with that upbringing, I had the discipline, I had the professionalism, I had the education. But because of the fixation on their career, a lot of traumas they didn't overcome. So a lot of drinking on both sides of the family were common. And so a lot of rage was let out at night after a lot of drinks. And that happened around when I was 11 years old. So between 11 to 17, that was a reoccurrence, like 5 nights a week. So fitness and faith became my outlet. So I didn't want to continue or to be the angry kid in school. So fitness was more so release emotions and all that and get in better shape because I was bullied at home. And then in school, I was the skinny kid. And I was just very unaware once we moved to America because it was a different dynamic. So with the home life, with school life and all that, that inspired me to get my body in better shape. And then also in combination with that, worked on my faith. Because after every workout, the mind is calmer, more open. And that's when I would work on my faith. And so then that segued into me wanting to help others feel and see the changes as well. And it started with just personal training. So I became a personal trainer when I was 15. And then at around 21, that's when I got inspired to get into life coaching because I saw that many people that I worked out with, they lost progress months or years after the fact we trained together. And I feel like I let them down because I didn't give him or her the mental tools to break old patterns. So whether that's food addiction, limiting beliefs, negative self-talk, all these different common things that people go through. And so that's essentially what I do nowadays is I help people identify patterns that are not serving them so they can thrive and not just survive. And what I mean by that is the person who crushes it in sales, but they can't keep a relationship to save their life. Or the person that is amazing in their relationship, but they never work out. Like everybody has one little quirk that they're like, yeah, I'm going to push it to January 1st. We pull it out of the closet, we face it, we control it so they can actually have control of their situation again. But in my experience of what I do now, my upbringing, my 10 years in the Army, time as an
Mhm.
athlete, and then with my schooling and certifications, I
Mhm.
just bring that combination into working with people to help them essentially just go from just surviving to thriving,
Mhm.
not just fitness, but the mindset as well. So they feel that they have control. So they're never just pushing things into the closet or they're under the rug anymore.
Right. Wow. I mean, such a journey to have gone on and made some really big choices at a very young age. I think most 15-year-olds aren't becoming personal trainers, or 21-year-olds saying like, oh, now I'm transitioning into being a coach, and having that self-reflection to recognize patterns in your own life at 15 and 21 when
Yes.
most people are, that is not on their radar at all. So how at 15 did you come to the moment of saying, I'm going to become a personal trainer?
So what it was is give, oh, I was tired of giving people the responses that they expected. And it started with
Oh,
family. So they expected the quiet kid to go to the room and just like get away from everyone.
yeah.
Or people would expect you to cry or expect you to argue back or yell back. So I made myself a promise that I will stop giving people the reaction that they expect.
Mm.
And usually my reaction was always calmness.
Hmm.
And at first, family and friends are like, "You're so nonchalant." And I would say, "No, I just don't waste time arguing or lashing back or like I would just agree with people. They're like, "Hey, you're this and this." I'm like, "You're right. Now what?" And they're like, "What do you mean?" And I would play this
Yeah.
game with people just to be like, I'm not gonna have my day or my moment or my mental state ruined because you're in a bad mood." And
Hmm.
so also growing up with alcoholic family,
Hmm.
you see how they act in situations with their friends, with their family, and you just start to catch their patterns because you can sense when they're on their good behavior, quote unquote, and when
Yeah,
they're about to spiral and all that. So just being the
sure.
quiet observer as a kid, and I was driving at like 13 years old, like driving my parents to
Hmm.
functions when, because I mean they had to drink, and so
Yeah.
I was literally all over the place and just people watching. And
Mm.
so that's honestly where I got the skills from before schooling and all that.
Hmm.
But fitness, it was, I got bullied at school for being the skinny mixed kid. People didn't know if I
Hmm.
was Hispanic, white, whatever. Like,
Hmm.
so I had a lot of bullying then,
Yeah.
and I was very insecure. I had a bad stuttering issue. I was very timid. My posture was bad. I was just that recluse, just very
Hmm.
scared, but it was because of what was happening at home, confusion. I
Yeah.
didn't know who I was. And so I got tired of being this person. So I said, no more. I'm going to turn this boy into a man physically,
Mm.
which will relate mentally and work on my faith. So it was more
Hmm.
so I got sick and tired of everybody punching me in the face, literally or emotionally
Sure.
in the
Yeah.
world. So I was like, I'm not gonna live this frail mentality or physicality.
Yeah.
So I had to make a change within myself. And then
Hmm.
within 2 years, my friends, classmates, and teachers are
Mm.
like, who are you? Like, did you have a twin?
Mm.
Like, you're
Hmm.
speaking now, giving presentations, raising your hand in better
Mm.
shape. Like, what happened? And so the main thing that I did, I got fully immersed in learning people's stories that went through things worse than me.
Mm.
Like I literally got obsessed with them. So whether it was movies, maybe interviews of top people, stories, books, autobiographies, and I
Hmm.
just loved learning comeback stories.
Mm.
Male, female, whoever it was, sports, celebrities,
Yeah.
scientists, didn't even matter what it was, but I just loved hearing it. And so I would see myself in them
Hmm.
and I would always say, this is part of my comeback story. And I would
Nice.
play this narrative in my head, opposed to seeing things as a victim or complaining or saying, why me? And we're
Yeah.
human. We go through things, but the
Totally.
combination of that is I wanted to take control. And step one to help people was physical training.
Hmm.
And then the more people you start to work with, you start to catch patterns of people. And you're like,
Yeah.
okay, she needs this, he needs that. And so life experiences working with many people, it
Hmm.
brought me into the life coaching. So
Nice.
just taking advantage of the path and knowing that I truly feel that everybody that has a level of trauma, whatever that level is,
Hmm.
what we were lacking as a child or as a teenager, we give to others
Mm.
of the world. So
Hmm.
I was lacking the support and the love, and I would give that to people. And they're
Yeah.
like, oh, he doesn't want anything. He legitimately is asking how I'm doing and not trying to sell me anything. I'm like, yes. And I'm actively going to listen because nobody
Yeah.
ever listened to me. So people are like, wow, you're really into what I'm saying. I'm like, you're passionate about subject XYZ. So I want to know
Yeah.
why. What got you into it? And they're like, nobody ever asked me that. Like, so I just try to
Yeah.
give people that and I'm just there.
I love it. I mean, what an incredible journey, not only in your own experience, but supporting others on theirs. And I imagine a fair amount of creativity shows up in you transforming yourself and supporting other people in their own transformation. So when you think about being creative or creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
To me, it means to get into flow state of getting lost in the moment, whether 1 hour feels like 5 minutes, 5 minutes feels like an hour, but doing that thing. So for me, it happened back then, still happens during a workout. I never know how long I'm in there unless I have somewhere to be. But you're just getting lost in the workout, in the music, in the run, in my thoughts, visualizing, having a conversation with somebody, a meaningful conversation, not just fluff talk, Kim K, MSNBC, whatever's happening in the world. Like I could care less. So real conversations, flow state with myself, with someone else. And so the creativity of that. Example two would be envisioning something and making it reality.
Mm.
So the the skinny kid or the teenager, he saw an example of a physique that inspired him, and then also saw an example of a public speaker that inspired him, and other examples. So I was like, all right, this is a version that I want to create. I have clarity on my goal. What do I need to do to get there? And it was like decision made, and then
Mhm.
going on to the next thing. So creativity, example one is just getting into that flow, actually doing the work and getting lost into it, not getting distracted. And then the other version two, is just building something
Mm.
and seeing it come into fruition. Like I'm currently in New York City. I'm only here for 2 days, but walking around, like I'm a Floridian. I live in South Florida. So a Floridian in New York, we're just like little kids. And I'm looking at every building. I probably took more pictures than anybody here these 2 days. But in general, is I think of the history. So when I see a
Mm.
building, I'm not just like, oh wow, it looks awesome. I think, what was he or she going through? Like, why do they
Mm.
think of that? And then I go home and Google it. I'm like, who built this? And it's just interesting to me. I'm not into architecture, it's not my career, but I just love the passion of creativity.
Yeah, and the curiosity. Oh my gosh, so much
Oh yeah.
curiosity about how something came about or what went into it. How do you keep that almost childlike curiosity active in your life? Because a lot of adults don't have that.
Yes. I would go back to the basics of what got you excited as a teen or a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So with me, I always loved movies, cinematic build-up scenes, dealing with sports and fitness, and just like a dramatic piano with a choir in the background, like
Yeah.
just the build-up, like they're about to go to war and just destroy. Like I always love stuff like that. It would give me chills and a rush. And
Mm-hmm.
so in a creative flow, I would, as a teenager, edit my own videos, whether they were 10 seconds or a minute, but I
Mm-hmm.
would make like training montages of me and my clients and my friends, and I would add all this like dramatic music. And they're like, all we did was squats. And the lady's like, this is the craziest video. Like they send it to their family and they're like, who are you training with? Like, this is badass. And I would just make everybody feel like a superhero, just add all this dramatic music and stuff to it and editing. So
Yeah.
the creativity started with seeing that type of content in movies or online. And
Mm-hmm.
then like I just love editing videos and just seeing the outcome of here's what I envision. Let's see if I can make it happen. And then it just feels good in the end. But
Mm-hmm.
going back to the basics is what got you creative back then? And when was the last time you did that thing?
Mm-hmm.
So somebody could have played piano until they were 17, then just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe they don't remember the reason. And they're like, huh, I don't feel like myself lately. It's like, what about creativity? What have you been doing? Do you
Yeah.
draw? Do you write? Do you sing? Do you edit videos? Do you build fences in the back? Like, do you have home projects?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe they just haven't played piano in 10 years and they like just go to a local store and just sit down, and then just this rush takes them over like, whoa, this was the missing piece. So I always challenge people to go back to their childhood and
Mm-hmm.
what got you excited then. It usually correlates to something that's similar.
Totally. So speaking of childhood, when you think about like creativity in your own life, what's your earliest memory of being creative?
I would definitely say building. So literally like with Connects,
Uh-huh.
Legos were popular, but I actually enjoyed Connects more. Like I would build roller coasters in my room.
Oh, fun.
Like Connects I
Yeah.
actually had like the thing with the wheels and all that's basically like Legos on steroids. That was Connects back then. I don't even know if they still make it, but like I would literally build this stuff and it'd be like 5 foot tall. And my parents would come in like, what are you doing? Like, how'd you even get it? That I was like, I don't know. I just put it all together. But building stuff and it was an outlet because I couldn't draw worth a crap. So I'm not an artist, but I could put stuff together. So definitely as a child is that. And then also digitally. Like I would
Yeah.
just find random editing programs back then and then I would just like practice. I'd go to YouTube, watch a tutorial, and then practice, trial and error, and just kept going.
Yeah. I love that. And I love hearing how like you're still doing that today, putting pieces together, whether it's supporting someone with their fitness workout, putting those pieces together, or in the life coaching space of listening to their story and putting the pieces together of what they've been pushing aside that's getting in their way of achieving the goals that they want. So
Oh yeah,
connects. It all started with connects.
there you go.
Yeah. Now, I imagine everything isn't always like sunshine and rainbows, and creativity doesn't always automatically flow. So, what are maybe some of the creative challenges that you faced, and then how do you work through those creative blocks or creative impasses?
So I would say it's a combination of knowing and accepting that I'm an extremist. And what I mean by
Mhm.
that is growing up with alcoholics and drugs in both sides of the family,
Yeah.
I knew that addiction just runs in our veins. Like literally almost every member like had something. And I
Hmm.
said, you know what? I have an addictive personality, quote unquote, but I chose fitness, faith, and like helping others.
Hmm.
And growing up, family and my parents' friends would say, all you do is work out. All you do is talk about them. Like, I never said it, but in my head, I'm like, all you guys do is drink and talk about each other when you walk out of the room. So like, I just work out and I help people. Like, what's the problem with that? I stay to myself. But with that being said, knowing that I'm an extremist as a kid
Yeah.
and as a teen, I knew that I know to this day, sometimes I get such deep tunnel vision that I have to like tap out of it to be more present with people. So, like, an
Mm-hmm.
example could be a couple years ago, I was building the business more and more. This is actually right before COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got so, in a good way, fixated on growing the business, helping more people. But I realized that for like 3 to 4 months straight, we didn't like go on one date where I was actually present, like
Oh,
fully present. I was always
yeah.
thinking about and then this gonna happen and that gonna happen. And I want to do this. And like, she fully supports my goals. I support her goals. But I like tapped out one day. I was like, I haven't actually been present.
Mm.
So I get so into, and it's good. I'm building in a positive way, but that is something that I know and I can sense when I'm getting there. So a thing that we do is every Friday, we call it our non-negotiable lunch date.
Mm.
Between 12 and 1 o'clock, we'll go any restaurant that's by the water. And we live in South Florida. So like just go to the ocean somewhere and just sit. And we're talking to clients, staff, just we speak to people all week. So like the first 20 minutes of our date, we actually don't say a word and we just look at the ocean or we
Mm.
look at the birds. And once we get our waters, once we get our food, like, hey, so what wins did you have this week?
Mm.
And then we just start to talk from there. But
Mhm.
hyper fixated on goals. Okay, we need this so I can hyper fixate on being present and we
Mm.
keep our phones away.
Mhm.
But it's interesting. But it's easier said than done. But what I will say is that if somebody can push their pride and ego away, they can do that.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
that's always step one. Can you push your
Yeah,
pride and ego away? Because sometimes only one person is present. So
absolutely. But like, what a gift to give yourself and someone else that reflection and honesty of like, I have not been present for the time that we've spent with each other. Not many
mm,
people are willing to say those words out loud or
Yes.
give someone else the opportunity to reflect on the choices that they've made in relationship with other people, or where their focus and attention has been. And so, like, way to go. That's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I do believe that the patterns, so one of my favorite things is being able to identify our own patterns
Yeah.
and see other people's patterns. But I knew that because I get so fixated in a good way on a goal that like I just go all in. Like even my friends are like, dude, you're like, don't sleep. And I'm just like, I gotta get it done. Life is short. Like I'm just that's my mentality. And then sometimes I'll just tap out and I'm like, can we watch 1 hour of mindless YouTube videos? Like let's just watch one
Yes.
hour of prank videos. Like I just want to see people just doing dumb stuff. And then my mind is like, cool, we could tap out. Or just like spend time with her or my dog and just
Yeah.
my challenge to people is always to I don't want to say know your limit, but know when you actually need to just be present with who you love and who loves you.
Mm.
Because there is a season, especially in business, it's different
Hmm.
than in other industries that you just have to be all in,
Yeah.
but know the time period. So the holidays are approaching. Some holidays just passed, but what I always challenge people to do is how much can you get done and make yourself proud so that by Christmas, whatever somebody celebrates, whatever next holiday is for that family, that they can sit there and say, I'm proud of myself because I did XYZ, and they look at their loved ones enjoying whatever they're doing and
Mm.
they're present.
Hmm.
Opposed to, I didn't do XYZ this year and I did this, and
Right.
January 1st is coming out. We got these bills due, and like not even present during the holidays, and they're just ready for them to pass so they can get back to work. So,
Yeah.
what can you do to be proud in those moments and be present? It's most important.
Like, what a great reminder. I'm curious, for people who maybe haven't ever tried to be present or shown up in a way that feels present focused, what are some quick little tips or tools that you use to help people orient to the present moment or feel more present in their life?
For sure. Great question. So I would highly recommend grounding. So getting into nature and utilizing all five of your senses.
Mhm.
And I just want to preface, I don't mean in a weird way to like live in your car for a month and like teach their own. Sometimes people run with it. They hear something, they're like, oh, well, he said to like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying extreme thing, just go 30 minutes in nature. And I ask people, when was the last time you dunked your head under a body of water, like an ocean, a
Mm.
lake, a river? Like actually went under it and just like sat there, or you go underwater and just scream for no reason, or underwater and swim. Like whatever you need to release your inner child, release tears, release anger, aggression, trauma, like whatever it is, do it
Yeah.
underwater. It's so therapeutic. Step two is when you're out of the water, or if they don't want to go into it, take your shoes and socks off and ground your bare feet on whatever surface is there, grass, sand, rocks, gravel, and use your senses, smell, taste, touch. Follow the bird for 1 minute straight. Where's this bird or squirrel going?
Mm.
Oh, I never noticed that tree was there. Huh. Look at that cloud. It looks like literally just be present with nature. It sounds
Yeah.
funny, but like after a bit, they'd start to realize like, wow, when was the last time I actually did this?
Hmm.
And the funny thing is you're more present, you're calmer, and you're actually releasing your inner child all in one.
Yeah.
'Cause which goes back to the creative flow because you're like, oh, that cloud is a dog. Like it's presence and creativity, where it's
Yeah.
like somebody else just sees cotton balls and somebody
I
else sees a
love
dog
it.
and they're like, what the hell is this? So
Yeah. And
it's
you're like giving yourself this free dopamine boost and oxytocin experience for those feel good chemicals. I love it.
exactly. And the last thing on that is the reason this is so important, and I highly recommend people do it daily, even if it's 5 to 10 minutes.
Hmm.
So I have a dog. We adopted a pit bull, and I walk her like 2 or 3 times a day. And then whenever we go on a long walk and she's tired while she's drinking water, I just look around. And
Mm.
also, I'm the weirdo that'll walk in the rain, and she enjoys it too. Like, when was the last time somebody went walking in the rain and just stood there, like with their arms out, and like
I
let the
love
rain hit
it.
them? Like, people don't do it. They're like, oh my God, it's raining. It's like, it's not thunderstormy. You'll be fine. But it's actually really therapeutic. Like, and
Yeah.
as kids, we're splashing in puddles and all that. So it's like
Hmm.
going back to the basics because there's a lot of new stuff that does work,
Yeah.
scientific studies and all this stuff. And it can be overwhelming to most people. But if you go
Mhm.
back to the basics, spend more time in nature, utilize all your senses. If you're present with nature and yourself, you can be present with people. And last but not least is everybody has a pattern of distraction because of their apps.
Mhm.
So their apps and their phone have their attention, but they're not even present in one app because a notification goes off. So everybody has a loop pattern. She gets bored. She goes to Amazon cart, then she goes to TikTok, then she goes to Instagram, then she sees if there's a new episode of her favorite show coming out Friday. What is this? Now is
Yeah.
this? Oh shoot, I was sending an email. Who's that too? Now I'm overwhelmed. I can't wait for 4 p.m. to drink some wine. And it's like this loop, and it happened within
Mhm.
10 minutes. And they're like, what am I doing? So
Yeah.
people don't have control of their attention. So that environment in nature, that time in nature will do a major,
Yeah.
just help them in a big way.
Yeah. Thank you for breaking it down that way. I think it's really helpful to have those quick pieces to get really present and to feel more connected to your present moment, and
Yes.
also having the juxtaposition of how quickly our mind goes from one thing to another with apps and technology versus how quickly our mind can go from one thing to another in nature. And we're
Yes.
essentially doing the same thing. We're just not like swiping on it. We're
For
watching
sure.
a bird fly and then looking at a tree and a cloud. So thanks for the
Oh yeah.
comparison. I appreciate that. I think
No
it's
problem, no
great.
problem.
Yeah.
And
Well, go
and I
ahead.
did just want to just real quick, I just wanted to bounce back to creativity is I challenge everyone to identify what they need to release. So the next
Mm,
time that you have a negative emotion, coworker pissed you off, somebody cut you off in traffic, whatever thing that happened, whatever negative emotion it is, give yourself a 10-minute window. The 10-minute window consists of you releasing whatever you need to release.
mhm.
Like a thing I like to ask people is, I can tell that you sense XYZ, but how long do you want to stay in this zone? And they're like, huh? I'm like, how long do you want to feel this way? And they're like, 5 minutes. I'm like, all right, what are you gonna do for 5 minutes? They're like, yell, like grab your steering wheel and just go, like whatever you
Yeah.
gotta do, or like cry for no reason. I'm
Yeah.
not saying to cry daily, but like sometimes just if there's nothing else, just like release. And the reason I say releasing is so important is because most of society just masks everything that they need to
Mhm.
release.
Yeah.
Alcohol, drugs, wine, unnecessary naps, binge watching, like
Absolutely.
whatever it is. But if they release, they're calmer. And when you're calm, you're present. When you're present, you can
Mhm.
be creative. Because it's hard
So
to be
true.
creative when you're just like boiling with anxiety and stress, when creativity is the
Yeah.
last thing on their mind.
Absolutely. Yeah, such a great reminder. I so appreciate all of these tips and tools that you've been willing to share. I just
No
have
problem.
one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
What it feels like, it's an adrenaline rush to me.
Hmm.
Adrenaline rush. So my faith is very strong. So I believe our intuition is God speaking through us.
Mm-hmm.
And when your conscious is guiding you to do something, the less that you question it and you just trust and you don't even give it any other thought and you just follow whatever it's saying, it's to me, it's an adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
So one of my favorite quotes is, it's already done, time just hasn't caught up yet. So when I feel the creativity and I feel the flow and I'm like, I don't know what's telling me to do this or what, like, but I don't question it.
Mm-hmm.
And something positive always happens, even if it's not right now or for me or for somebody else. I just know whenever it's going to connect and come full circle. So
Nice.
that voice is always there, but
Yeah,
people are clouded by everything else because they're not
totally.
present. But once you're present, the voice is like slapping you in the face and you're like, oh, the hints, clues, and ideas were right there, but I
Right.
was being distracted. But
Yeah. Well, I love,
definitely an adrenaline rush.
yeah, I love that experience of adrenaline and that it, yeah, and trusting that process or that inner knowing or the faith that moves through you that you're headed in the direction to support yourself or someone else. And I think the distinction of the positive outcome may not be in this moment, it may come later, and to trust that it will come at some point, and to not get worked up about when will it come. So that, like, really trusting and the unknown. We don't know when it will happen, but trusting that it will. So
Oh, yes.
love that. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about the programs you do, the things that you have available, how could they go about doing that?
All right. Thank you, Mari. So they could find me at fitwithderick.com. That's DERICK. And on my website, I just like to show real people with real results. Some are fitness, where they'll see body transformations, and others, it's strictly videos where they tell their story of things they went through, where they're at now, and you can just sense their calmness and confidence. That's all I aim to do. Give people their power back so they have their calmness and confidence, and they're in control, not anything else. And then on social media, it is Fit with Derick 2. My whole intent is to plant seeds. When you hit snooze 5 times and you saw the video, you're gonna be like, ooh, he called me out in that video. Or when somebody's waiting till January 1st, I'm gonna mention that, and I'm gonna be in their head, but it's in a positive way. I'm that one person in somebody's corner that's gonna speak up. I'm gonna be like, hey, everybody else is telling you this is a phase. You're not happy. What are we gonna do about it? And they're like, yeah, you're right. Let's do it. That's my whole intent. Make people think so they stop wasting potential.
Nice. Well, thank you again for taking the time to chat with me. It has been
Thank you.
such a joy to chat, and thank you for all of the tips and tools that you had to share with us.
I appreciate you having me, Mari.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.